The following is an AZPM original production.
For AZPM, I'm Mark McLemore, and this is Arizona Spotlight. Coming up, get a preview of what this month's 54th annual Tucson Juneteenth Festival has to offer. From the UA Library's Archive Tucson project, Richard Davis shares memories of the local black community in the early 60s and how he got to know a woman named Quincy Douglas. June is designated as Aphasia Awareness Month, and I'll talk with both the founder and the new CEO of the Friends of Aphasia about how they offer friendship and support to those in need. And this month's Stories That Soar is about a boy and his father who aren't afraid to enjoy a little stormy weather together. Those stories are next on Arizona Spotlight. Juneteenth is a celebration of what is recognized as the end of slavery in the United States. It occurred on June 19, 1865, 2.5 years after President Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation. White slave owners had moved thousands of black slaves to the most remote parts of the Texas coast, including Galveston Island, with the intent of avoiding the Union Army. Juneteenth marks the day when these people became liberated. This year is the 54th annual recognition of Juneteenth in Tucson. It will be centered around an all-day multicultural event on Saturday, June 15th at the Keno Sports Complex. There will also be many other events happening throughout the month. And joining me now is the president of the Tucson Juneteenth Committee, Larry Starks.
Being a native Tucsonan, Juneteenth has always been a part of my life. So initially, my brother Bernie Starks, he ran Juneteenth for over 20-something years, and he passed away in 2015. So when he passed away, I took it upon myself to say, I need to try to fill his shoes. I couldn't fill them. I mean, his shoes are too big to really fill because there are so many other things that he did. But one of his passions was really about the Juneteenth Festival. He was, even prior to it becoming a federal holiday, he was instrumental in it becoming a holiday for the state. So he really rallied and fought for it to become a holiday. And so before it could be realized, he passed away. So again, it was incumbent upon me to really just try to not just do it, but do it in a way I know where he wanted it to go, where he wanted it to be bigger and better, and a event that people look forward to every year, and not just a one-off. There was a lot of things that he wanted Juneteenth to be in the community, a real integral part of it. So that's really where the fight really comes from inside of me, is just kind of help living that dream that he had.
So would you say the effort that Bernie began to make it a holiday, to talk to the Pima County Board of Supervisors about it, that you picked that up after his passing and carried that through?
I did. I picked it up. Fortunately, it was very shortly after I became, as a president, that it became a federal holiday, but it became, a state holiday prior to. So, myself and Mr. Bolding in Phoenix and others, Clarence Boykins, Ron Burton, and a lot of others who were here who helped make that possible, going to talk to the city of Tucson, the mayor's office, the Pima County Board of Supervisors, and letting them know the importance of what Juneteenth really is about.
Larry, you say that your awareness of Juneteenth and the purpose of Juneteenth has been with you for a long time. How did your family kind of observe that?
Yearly, we go to the A Mountain Park where, people gathered, a lot of food, a lot of fun. My brothers played in the band, meeting up with friends, eating food. And then, of course, as I got older, really understanding what it was about. But again, you really look forward to Juneteenth because it was going to be people there you may not have seen for a long time. You could smell barbecue in the air as soon as you came up, A Mountain. And when it was on A Mountain, it was packed. I mean, because the park was so small. We didn't realize at the time how small it was, with probably, I'm going to say maybe over 1,000 people at this one park. But it was just so packed, you'd have to park far away. If you didn't get there early enough, you had to park far away and walk down to the park. Then as it grew, going to Kennedy Park and other places, a lot of political stuff happening with it moving, but it was still a integral part of the black community. Was what's going on for Juneteenth, what's happening for Juneteenth.
What can you share with people about what it's like now? Are they still going to have to park and walk?
We've been blessed over the past few years. At the Keno Sports Complex, you don't have to walk. You don't have to get your shoes dirty. It's grass out there. I mean, it's a large space where people can just come sit and enjoy yourself. We have all kind of food vendors. And again, just the atmosphere itself, the ambiance of what a festival is really about. I've been at festivals in Texas and other places, and, they celebrate for a whole week in Texas. And so just that whole, I wanted to kind of recreate that atmosphere of love, just people just enjoying themselves, just being genuinely themselves and just hanging out and just having fun.
So in addition to the food vendors, what can people expect?
Just speaking about the festival itself on the 15th, when you first come in, of course, we have a car show, and it's grown. I think now they told us we'll have maybe over 60 cars there. Vintage, lowriders, hot rods. TPD will bring out their lowrider, their Challenger that they have, and people, of course, just stepping up and just, I want people to realize that Juneteenth is not a black holiday. It's an American holiday. It's a part of the United States history. So in Tucson, we have a mix of people where when we're at our best, you'll see the cultures that thrive in Tucson, whether it's Hispanic, black, white, brown, whatever it might be. When we're all come together for one purpose, which is just to enjoy each other, it's a really, really beautiful thing. I can educate you about Juneteenth once I get you in front of me. I can't educate you if I isolate you. So the only way for me to really get you to know and understand what the true meaning about Juneteenth and what the history is to have you in front of me.
You touched on the slogan, it's a movement, not a moment.
Right.
But I'd like you to tell me a little bit more about the thought behind that.
We can't just expect people to know what Juneteenth is, and we can't just be a one-off where once a year we'll say, oh, here we are. If we want to be community, we got to ingratiate ourselves to the community, and we got to put ourselves out there to the community. So we start partnering with other agencies, with Emerge, Goodwill of Southern Arizona, Pillars and Bridges, and others to say, okay, what can we do so that the community knows where we're at and what we're doing? We're looking at different niches that we don't, as Black people, we don't normally venture into. So we want to make sure that we put our people and our kids and others in these different places and spaces so they know that opportunities are out there.
Well, Larry, to provide leadership for the committee itself, but also to help organize this enormous event takes a lot of energy. And we began with that, we asking you about where your commitment comes from. But where is it that you feel this energy coming back to you? Do you have any examples you can give us of a time when you knew you were doing the right thing?
I think last year, honestly, when we were at Keno Sports Complex, and I just looked at the crowd like, wow. I was on stage. I think I was about to say something. I got kind of choked up because I'm like, this is amazing. And it was just a beautiful feeling to know that everybody came together for that. And that to me was kind of the culmination. It kind of kept me going for the next year. Like, okay, I think there's more to be done.
I think you gave a very good invitation to everyone who's listening to enjoy themselves this year and to reflect a little bit on what freedom really means.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Larry Starks is the president of the Tucson Juneteenth Committee. We have a link on the Spotlight page at azpm.org for a full calendar of this month's events. One mission of special collections at the University of Arizona Libraries is to collect and preserve the stories of Tucsonans. Next, we'll hear some remembrances about the South Park neighborhood and Tucson's Black community in the 1960s from Richard Davis.
Back in 1963, I could go into South Park, and the roads were not paved. The park was a dump. There were no sidewalks, no street lights. But you could go there on a given day, particularly on a Sunday. And life was about as festival as you might want to believe, because you had people walking to church, because most people walked in that general area. A lot of them didn't even have cars. You had the Masons, and you had the Sisters of Jericho. These are female organizations. Most of them dress up in their white uniforms, or either purple or whatever. And on a given day, you see Sergeant Baker and other people who happen to be real life Buffalo soldiers walking down the street, some of them still wearing their uniforms. And then there was a lady, Mary Campbell, who actually had a house built underground. She had a piano underneath there. She was proud of it and would show it to you. And for the life of me, I don't know how we ever allow that to be covered up and not preserved, because it was unbelievable. Back in those days, where the Keno Freeway is at 22nd Street now, they used to have a little shopping center in there with a Lucky's grocery store and and a bank and a laundromat and all right on the corner there, where the post office is located, just north of there. And so a lot of people just walk to the grocery store and things of that nature. They had a few clubs down there, also nightclubs and so forth. Then you had Smithy Dunn. She had a restaurant down there, faced South Park. And you could go in and get the best cornbread and collard greens in the world. So, it was like a little city. You really didn't have to go very far to do what you needed to do. And a lot of activity. One of the most dynamic people in South Park back in the early 60s was a lady by the name of Quincy Douglas. Quincy had a high school education, and she was one of the folks who concluded that, South Park, like I said, was underdeveloped, but she felt that her neighborhood should have the same benefits as some of the other neighborhoods. So she spent a lot of time down with the mayor and council, and she's the one that really pushed to have the streets paved and the park created and a lot of other different things. And so at some point in time, she had a stroke and didn't get around very well. So either had to walk a lot and take the bus to the extent that it existed, or you had to have other people who had cars, drive you around. And that was Quincy's concern. She said there ought to be a way that poor people can get around without having to do, some crazy stuff. And so one day she solicited me and she said, in essence, that, I'm going to create a transportation system in this town for poor people, and you're going to help me out. And by the way, I can tell you one of the ways this happened is this is how I met my wife. And this is her mother, by the way, Quincy Douglas. I worked with her primarily because that was the price I had to pay to date a daughter. And so Quincy says, in essence, that I need to do A, B, C, and D. And I said, Quincy, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to come up with a name. And she said, well, that's easy. And I said, what name do you want? She said, LIFTS, called Low Income Free Transportation Service. I want you to create a corporation. And I did. She said, I want to be prepared to move. And before I do that, I want to show people that I'm serious. And so right around about 65 or so, a young man came to town by the name of Jim Click. And Quincy said one day, that's the man I'm going to talk to, because she was from Chickasha, Oklahoma, and Jim was from Oklahoma. And before it was all said and done, she talked Jim Click into giving her a van. And from that, she ended up with a fleet of vehicles, a system run out of her house. She had drivers. She got a grant from the city. And Lyft ran a transportation service for poor people for about 7 years. Eventually, the city took it over, and that's your special needs transportation. But that's what I remember about South Park.
The storyteller was Richard Davis, recorded and produced by Angus Anderson for Archive Tucson, an oral history project of special collections at the University of Arizona Libraries. You can find more stories at archivetucson.com. In 2022, the family of actor Bruce Willis announced that he would retire from acting. He had been diagnosed with a very aggressive form of aphasia, a communication disorder that is more common than Parkinson's disease, but rarely receives the same amount of attention. Usually, it's the result of a stroke, a brain infection, or head injury. Aphasia can greatly interfere with a person's ability to speak, read, write, or use numbers. Here in Tucson, there's a support group for adults that's based out of the Aphasia Center, which is near Craycroft and Speedway. June is Aphasia Awareness Month, and joining me now is Dr. Fabi Hirsch-Cruz, the founder of the Friends of Aphasia, and the group's newly appointed CEO, Katie Aries. Fabi, you and I have gotten to know each other over the years. First of all, how long have you been working with patients with aphasia?
So I have been a speech-language pathologist for over 32 years, and I've worked that entire time with people who have aphasia and people who have other neurological communication disorders. We so often take communication for granted, yet it's so complex, and our brain has to do so much for every word to come out. And people don't think that that can just be taken away in a moment. And it is hard for people to imagine until it happens to them.
And meeting your group members helped make me understand that maybe it's not as tragic as I thought it was in a way, because of the support that you and your group have and the way they smile and wait or play word games to try to get to the word that someone is looking for. My first thought was that it was going to be a very depressing place to be, I'll be honest with you, but I found the opposite.
When I tell people what I do, that I work with people who have lost the ability to communicate. People say, gosh, that must be really depressing.
Yeah.
And that could not be further from the truth. The people we work with are just incredible in their determination, in their sense of humor. When you think of what it takes to tell a joke, you need to have the right words, you need to have the right timing, and those are really hard when you have aphasia. But at our aphasia center, Friends of Aphasia, there's absolutely not a day that is sad or depressing. It's the most wonderful place to be, and I look forward to going to work. Everyone is so supportive. Everyone is working so hard. And that's why we really want to raise awareness about who we are and what we do, because we know there are so many people who are sitting at home, isolated, depressed, who aren't aware that we have one of the few aphasia centers in the country, and we're here to help.
Katie Aries, the first question I have for you is, how did aphasia come into your world? How did you become aware of this condition, and what makes you want to devote your time to helping those living with it?
I actually was one of the 84% of folks that are typically walking around and hadn't heard of the term aphasia. My grandmother had a stroke at age 33. And when her husband passed away, she actually moved in with my parents. And so my parents became her support system. Fast forward, then they adopted me. So really, I grew up, with a grandmother who was a stroke survivor, who lived in my household and had aphasia. I just didn't know that there was a term for it. And it wasn't until I moved out to Tucson in 2015 and met our co-founders, Dr. Fabi Hirsch-Cruz and former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, that I knew that there was a term for it. Knowing, I'd say, the history, having lived experience of supporting someone, loving someone, seeing her struggles, but also seeing those, shining moments of her personality and her quick wit, really taught me a lot just growing up. So to me, she was my Grammy, but realizing that, she was living with aphasia and had struggles with communication.
How long have you been with Friends of Aphasia now?
I joined in February of this year, so I'm the new kid on the block.
Have you noticed any change in the way you think about communication?
Absolutely. I think taking a breath, realizing that silence is okay, that you don't necessarily need to jump in. Someone can just be noodling on a word that they really want to be intentional about using. I think I've also learned from the group different things like using gestures. I've seen some of our members try to recall a number because they wanted to vote for something and either drawing it with their finger, holding it up. If it's maybe an activity, kind of making those gestures and showing us what that would look like. I also feel like I've kind of picked that up too, where I'm also trying to make sure that not only for the folks who might be listening to me speak verbally, but if there's a way that I can write something on a board for someone, or if there's a way that I can add gestures to what I'm saying, and just being aware of folks that might be in the room that may be communicating in different ways and might be more tuned into certain things.
Dr. Hirsch-Cruz, could you please share with us any kind of vision or hope for where we might be, say, in 5 years with aphasia and people's knowledge about it and ability to treat it?
I am very excited for the future of our field. I think with so many advances in technology and neuroscience, we can potentially see huge gains in research and treatment for people living with aphasia. And that's part of our goal at Friends of Aphasia, is to collaborate with others to be part of that research and development of new treatment approaches. As an organization, I have big dreams and big goals, especially now with having Katie on board, that we'll be able to expand into individual therapy, because it's such a nice complement to group therapy to be able to work individually and then see those actual meaningful conversations come to life in the groups. More advocacy work, more training in the community, more awareness. I think Tucson will be one of the most aphasia-friendly places in our country. And I hope we can really lead the way in starting a movement of aphasia awareness throughout the U.S.
So June being Aphasia Awareness Month, how is that being observed here in Tucson?
For Friends of Aphasia, we actually have at least 3 events this month. Really a big part of it is just getting aphasia awareness out into the community, making people feel comfortable and know what aphasia is when they hear the word. But we've got 3 different events. We have one on June 8th that's for the members of Friends of Aphasia, their loved ones, our volunteers, and our team. We're going to be doing some rock painting, or we call it Aphasia Rocks, where we'll come together, spend an afternoon in community, paint and decorate some of the rocks, and then we'll put some information on the back of them, and we'll seal them up and then hide them around Tucson. We'd love for folks to share if they find any around town. We're all pretty scattered, so I think we're going to do a good job of getting them all out. So the second event is a continuation. So this is High Asia for Aphasia 2 from Greg and Barbara Leonard, who were here previously. Greg is going to be doing a presentation at Summit Hut Tucson on Speedway on Thursday, June 13th from 4:30 to 6 p.m. So we'll be there celebrating. It is no cost to attend. Greg will be giving a great presentation of his High Asia for Aphasia 2 campaign and sharing about his momentous climbs.
And I can attest that Greg is a terrific speaker, that he knows his subject very well, and he and his wife Barbara have engaged in many mountain climbing experiences. And so I'm sure he's got a lot of great stories to tell.
Then the third event that we have is actually going to be in Cochise County in Huachuca City. One of our members, Andy, who was also previously here, has a family member who has a bar named Buddy's Bar. So they are doing their first fundraiser of the year called Buddy's Bar Benefit. And all of the proceeds will go to Friends of Aphasia from 4 to 8 p.m. And again, that'll be at Buddy's Bar in Huachuca City. And they'll be having raffles. They've got some burgers and food donated. They have a band that's donating their time. So it'll be lots of fun and good energy, all for Friends of Aphasia.
My guests were the co-founder of Friends of Aphasia, Dr. Fabi Hirsch-Cruz, and the group's new CEO, Katie Aries. We have a link to their calendar of events and more stories on the Spotlight page at azpm.org. When young writers submit their stories to Literacy Connect's Magic Box Story Portal online, they get the opportunity to hear their work performed by Stories That Soar, a group of multi-talented professional performers. The Stories That Soar team is on a mission to amplify youth voices, helping young writers realize the power and potential of bringing their stories to life across all mediums. Next, Nate, a 5th grader at Robinson Elementary, tells about some of the positive attention that he gets from his father and the adventures they can have together whenever the sky turns dark and the rain starts to fall.
So how it started. Dad and me were at my house. And then it started raining. A lot. Dad, look at the rain.
Oh, so cool.
Can we go?
Well...
Whoa! Can we? Oh, can we?
We'll get in the car.
So, we went storm chasing.
So cool.
When we got in the car, the raindrops were so big and heavy. They looked like a baseball. Dad, look at the rain.
Let's go.
Yeah. I love it when the rain hits the windows. They're so big, they make a sound. It's so satisfying. Whoa, that was so bright.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, how close? Do you remember how to figure it out?
It's a mile?
That's right.
Whoa, those raindrops are huge. Also, when I put my hand out in the rain, It was hard. Ow, ow. That's hard. And cold.
Let's go.
All right. Then I closed the window. The rain smelled like really nice grass.
Oh, it always smells so good after the rain, doesn't it?
Yeah, like really nice grass.
Hey, kiddo, look over there.
Dad? The best part about the rain is the rainbow. Dad, do you see that? There are two.
A double rainbow.
Especially a double rainbow. I saw in my life at least 4 or 5.
Oh, there it goes.
Bye, rainbow. Dad, this was so fun. Can we go storm chasing again?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
All right, kiddo. Time to go back home. Let's go.
And that was the day I went storm chasing with my dad. The end.
That was Storm Chaser, written by Nate, a 5th grader at Robison Elementary. Go Roadrunners. It was performed by Jordan Siebert and Brendan Murphy. Aspiring student-age writers can submit their stories, poems, and songs to the Magic Box Story Portal now at literacyconnects.org. And tune in for more Stories That Soar every month on Arizona Spotlight. Thank you for listening. This show is a production of AZPM. The production engineer is Jim Blackwood. Production assistance by Alicia Vasquez. I'm producer and host Mark McLemore.
AZPM podcasts are made possible in part by donations from listeners like you. Learn more at support.azpm.org. Thank you.